Okay, this is People of the State of Michigan versus Alan Kletke, docket number 20-781FH. This is the time set for sentencing. Mr. Kletke, before we go further, can you just confirm for me that you did agree to be sentenced remotely instead of being brought here to the courthouse?
Yes, Your Honor, I did.
Thank you. And Mr. Kletke, you were convicted of stalking. That is a misdemeanor punishable by up to 1 year in jail. You have the right to an attorney and you are represented by Mr. Hess. And Mr. Hess, have you had an opportunity to go through the pre-sentence report with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
And do you have any additions, deletions, or corrections?
No, Your Honor.
And there are, of course, no guidelines because this is a misdemeanor. Did the people have any corrections to the report?
No, Your Honor.
And then was there a victim who wished to be heard?
Your Honor, I did speak with Ms. Kane and Mr. Kane earlier today. Ms. Kane had originally expressed her desire to appear before the court and make a statement. She's unfortunately unable to be present today, but did want the court to know that her underlying concern is the continued pattern of behavior from Mr. Kletke, that this unwanted contact has continued. They received and were granted personal protection orders for their family from Mr. Kletke, and then the behavior obviously continued, which is how we became to have the case that we have today. Her wish is that he continues to remain to leave her alone. Mr. Kletke's underlying argument has always been that they're keeping his son away from them. She wants it to be made very clear that Mr. Kletke has always had the option to follow the proper channels to be able to see his son, has never chosen to do so, that they are not doing anything improper, nor is there anyone at their home that he should be able to see that he does not see. And so her wishes are that he continues to stay away, that they don't have continuing problems with that. And she truly believes that the main underlying issue is his substance use. And I think that that's pretty well documented. I know that there's reports or statements made by Mr. Kletke that he had been sober since 2019. They believe that he was still using when this incident itself occurred. But the goal here is to make sure that Mr. Kletke remains sober, whether he was sober in 2020 or whether he is sober now, certainly from being incarcerated and in custody. The goal is for him to remain sober and to continue to not have contact with the family. And then outside of that, she wishes to leave the rest in the court's discretion.
Thank you very much. Do the people have any additional comments beyond that of the victims?
I would just concur with the victim's concern. I've actually been involved with this case for a little while. I was involved at the district court level. I think those concerns have continuously been echoed from the onset of this case, and agree that the substance abuse issue is what needs to be addressed in this equation, and would agree and ask the court to continue with the victim's wishes as well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hess, I'll hear from you.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. During my career, I've had several cases that have similar patterns. People have a very difficult time when they feel as if they're being alienated or estranged from a close family member or a child. I've advised Mr. Kletke that in order to address the legal aspects of his child custody concerns, he will have to turn to the family courts, where the laws of this state provide for procedures and policies to resolve all of these disputes concerning children or putative children. As of now, it's very important for Mr. Kletke to continue to respect the personal protection orders and not have contact with these people unless given permission by the family court. And I believe the family division also is involved with the personal protection orders. So Mr. Kletke, if he wishes to have contact with his child, will have to go through the proper child custody channels. I do understand the dual concerns of substance abuse and also Mr. Kletke acting out and disobeying the orders of the court. My last few contacts with Mr. Kletke have been very positive. He's had a lot of time to meditate and contemplate his life in the jail. He's a very talented individual. He has dreams of being a union electrician. I believe that the substance abuse has gotten in the way of his career path. He does have a plan to stay with his mother, find warehouse work or culinary work as he continues his plan to get back into Lansing Community College and hopefully gain a trade apprenticeship as an electrician. And I think he'll be fully capable of that. I believe that the proposed term of probation is appropriate to provide Mr. Kletke the accountability that can come with regular drug testing and supervision by the court. I would respectfully ask that Mr. Kletke be sentenced to the time he has served in the county jail with a term of probation to follow. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Kletke, is there anything you wanted to say?
Just that I've been sober for almost 2 years now, and that the drugs were not the main issue there, but I understand that I need to stay away from them, and that is not a problem. I have never had a problem staying away from them. I just wish I could speak to my child. It's hard for me not to see my son. He's just almost 5 years old, 6 years old. So, and he's only there because I was trying to do the right thing by taking him away from his mother that was an addict. Well, I was on drugs as well at the time and didn't have a safe place for him to go. So I put him in a situation that I knew was stable, and now they're fighting me tooth and nail now that I'm clean and back on my feet to try and see my son and try and be a part of his life.
Okay, thank you. Well, I understand that, and it's, any father would want to see his son. I mean, that's just so completely understandable, and I totally get your motivation. But you're your own worst enemy on that. You know what I mean? Because, here you are, they got an order, a PPO, that you can't have contact with them, and knocking on their door, regardless of what you're doing, you're violating the PPO. And so you're only setting yourself up to fail if your end goal is to see your son. I would love to see you succeed at it, but in order to succeed at it, you can't fight against yourself. You can't be your own worst enemy and, put up these, now you've got a conviction of stalking. I don't know how you're going to dig out from that, but I do know that you're not going to help it ever, ever, ever by violating a PPO. No matter how understandable your motive is, you're never going to get out of it. You're never going to dig out of this hole if you just take it upon yourself to violate the PPO. So I hope that you will, do better on that in the future. I don't hope. You're going to be required, of course, not to have contact with them. I also noted that, as your attorney mentioned also in the pre-sentence report, it talks about your goals of employment and being an electrician. I think that's great. And going to college, going to LCC, I think that's great. I want to push you along and encourage you to do that. I think that could only be a good thing for you and your prospects for the future. I want to encourage you, though, that I think it would be therapeutic for you to just get any employment in the meantime while you're working towards that ultimate goal. There's lots of jobs out there right now, and any employment is going to keep you occupied and productive and keep you on track to getting things back in order where maybe the day will come that you can see your son again, I hope, for your sake. So I'm going to place you on probation for a period of 18 months, 264 days in jail with credit for 264 days served. You have to pay $75 to the Crime Victims Fund, $50 in state costs. I'm waiving oversight fees and waiving costs to the county. There are additional conditions of probation. You may not use or possess alcoholic beverages or controlled substances or drug paraphernalia. You may not use marijuana recreationally or use marijuana in violation of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. You must comply with both drug and alcohol testing as your agent directs. I know you say you've been clean for a while, but if anything should come up where the agent notices off behavior or sees certain signs, they may ask you to complete a substance abuse assessment. You have to do that if they ask, and complete whatever outpatient or residential substance abuse treatment would be recommended for you. You must not engage in any assaultive, abusive, threatening, or intimidating behavior. You may not have any contact with anyone you know to have a felony record. You may not possess a weapon while you're on probation. You must contact your agent no later than the first business day following your release from the jail. You must comply with the written and verbal orders of your agent. Let the agent into your home at any time. Submit to a search of your person or property without need of a warrant. Report any changes to your agent within 24 hours, including notifying your agent within 24 hours if you're served with a personal protection order. You may not have any contact, and that means in any form, verbal, written, electronic, or in person, with James Kane or Michelle Kane or Chloe Langdon, either directly or through another person, and you may not be within 500 feet of their residence, school, or place of employment. You must make genuine efforts to find and maintain employment, a minimum of 30 hours per week, and you must complete a cognitive behavioral program. Mr. Kletke, you have the right to file an application for leave to appeal your conviction and your sentence in this matter. You're entitled to an attorney at public expense to help you. If you're making a request for one, you have to make it within 14 days of today's date. It will explain that more on a form that we will mail to you. And just remember that you've done your time up front on this, so if there's no other holds, you're going to get out of jail. But you do need to pick up the phone and contact adult probation within 24 hours of your release just to make contact with them, get your probationary term all set up. They'll orient you to all the conditions, etc., and then you'll be all set. Okay, do you have any questions before we go?
That's adult probation at 30th District or Circuit Courthouse?
Were you already, I can't remember, were you already on probation?
No, ma'am.
No. Yeah, no, it's probation through adult probation. Are you I'm not sure I understood your question.
Am I going to be supplied with the phone number to get there?
Oh, yes, of course. If you have a good memory, I can give it to you. Otherwise, maybe Mr. Hess can communicate with you, but you'll want to call them at 483-6100.
Okay.
That's pretty easy, right? 483-6100. That's adult
Yeah.
probation. Okay?
Yes.